Hi, in this my second PDA video I'd like to take a look at some of the characteristics and behaviours associated with pathological demand avoidance syndrome. Individuals with PDA are capable of showing a level of emotional understanding, sensitivity and empathy. They usually have good eye contact, are aware of personal space and have good social timing. So at face value they appear to have good social skills, but they may well use these more for effect than meaning, and typically as tools to manipulate others. Frequently, skills will only be employed as and when it suits them. When comfortable, these children can be highly verbal and maintain meaningful dialogues. However, there can be difficulties with language. They may be able to deliver or express well, but struggle with the receptive half of the same conversation. There is a tendency to take things literally, misinterpreting subtleties such as sarcasm and humour, or missing nuances that alter the meaning of sentences. Children with PDA lack a clear sense of self-identity, finding it hard to see or accept that they are children, and they have an expectancy to be treated as adults and take control of things in a very grown-up way. Perhaps because of this, they often have a greater affinity with adults than they do with children, and in relationships with peers will frequently need to take the lead role. There is often a strong sense of right and wrong, knowing exactly how others should behave, but see themselves as above and beyond these same rules. When relationships do work, they can become obsessive, with unrelenting attention and reliance placed on one person. Imitation of inappropriate behaviour is also common, and is a reason why mainstream schools with normal peer groups are desirable. However, few will flourish in a mainstream environment without considerable support, and for many, a special school is the most appropriate option. In social interactions, there is an obsessive need to dominate and be in control. Everything must be done their way and under their command. They will often come across as bossy or overbearing, and can lose friends or make enemies through an unwillingness to bend or go with the flow. This determination and single-mindedness is a defence strategy to guard against the anxiety-provoking demands they fear may be imposed on them. Controlling their environment limits the risk of unexpected or unwanted demands, making the environment safer and more predictable for them. Having said this, a PDA child is not locked into routine or sameness. In fact, some change and novelty appeals. However, they can lack the skills to read the changes in social dynamics that accompany an altered situation. So transition times can be difficult. For example, a move from the classroom to the playground may disturb the balance, increasing anxiety and the risk of problems. Understanding how and why minor demands provoke such anxiety for PDAs is hard to get your head around, yet without an insight into this it is difficult to place yourself in their shoes. People with PDA have an urgent need to avoid demands. It's not so much that they can't do it or won't do it, but they can't help not doing it or can't help won't. Even the smallest everyday demand can send their anxiety levels through the roof. When this stressed, they are incapacitated to deal with demands rationally, panicking to such an extent that everything becomes a demand too great to cope with, and one that must be avoided at all costs. They become rigid in their thinking, and impossible to sway from their train of thought. They lose a logical perspective on the scale of a demand, but remain fully focused on avoiding it. They may try to distract you or use excuses for why they cannot cooperate. Other times they may run away, hide, refuse to move, pretend not to hear, cover their ears, talk, shout or sing over you to drown out your instructions. It could alternatively be just a point-blank refusal, or there may be violent and aggressive behaviour, risking injury to themselves, others or damage to property. Frequently, avoidance will commence fairly low-key but rapidly escalate into a full-blown meltdown. These meltdowns may be fast and furious, but it is not uncommon for them to last an hour or more. When they are finished, you often cannot remember what minor incident triggered it all in the first place, appearing to be a crisis over nothing. After prolonged meltdowns, a child may sob uncontrollably, with anger and remorse for what they have done. In some, this may lead to self-harming due to disgust at their lack of self-control, stating that they do not deserve to be alive, or wishing that they were dead. But even without these extremes, there does seem to be a permanent internal struggle of contradicting behaviours and emotions, sometimes with both sides of the coin showing at the same time. Love and hatred, concern and disregard, altruism and selfishness, all vying with each other in Jekyll and Hyde style mood swings. Self-esteem and personal worth can run at rock bottom for much of the time, and children are often loath to accept praise or encouragement. In the classroom, children may destroy work that is praised, and often impose impossibly high standards on themselves. Some may reason that powerful resistance to demands, or a remorseful aftermath, are strategies designed to gain an attention reward. But parents quickly learn that attention exacerbates both aggression and remorse. A withdrawal of communication is often the best facilitator for a return to an even keel, and indeed many children actively seek to be left alone until their normal service is resumed. PDA children can of course be just plain naughty. I recognise their difficulties, but do not think that all inappropriate conduct can be excused by the disorder. In my son I see two types of challenging behaviour. There are rages and avoidance that are born directly out of demand anxiety, over which there is little control, but I would suggest there is also deliberate confrontational testing of boundaries over which there is control. The difficulty is that when dealing with this controlled behaviour, it is very easy for the demands that we use to address this to push enough buttons to trigger the former uncontrolled behaviour. It is this fine line that causes many parents to feel like they are walking on eggshells. Necessary actions, unless skillfully handled, will backfire with greater consequences than if the offending behaviour had been ignored. Sanctions, loss of privilege, or indeed any punishment has little lasting effect, and the same behaviours repeat time and time again, despite the certainty of consequences. By this I'm not suggesting that you should never sanction your child, but cautioning that it seldom brings the results that you would expect from good discipline. Discipline can only be one of many strategies used to manage behaviour. If used alone, it will be one of the least effective approaches you could apply. What may surprise some is that incentives and rewards are similarly unfruitful. Role play is also another common feature of PDA. Now this may be a TV or cartoon character, or perhaps a pop star or other celebrity, while other children assume an imaginary alter ego they have invented for themselves. But perhaps more frequent is the adoption of the role of a figure of influence. A child may become the teacher, policeman or parent, instructing and ordering other children or adults. They will not just mimic a character, but assume that person's role and expand and adapt it to suit their situation. Often it's hard to get them out of character, and there can be a real belief that they are that person for that moment in time. Roleplay is most commonly used as a coping strategy, although it can become a way of being, with a child living almost permanently in a world of make-believe. Generally speaking, most PDA children have strong imaginations that will blur the boundaries between fact and fantasy. Beyond the earliest years, their play is less mature than many of their peers, and they will easily be caught up in their imaginary games in quite a juvenile and obsessive way.